part of what I want to cover is what no one tells you about fear. What we're going to do today is we're going to name fear, because if we allow fear to grow in silence, it shrinks our clarity. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the real world triggers people are dealing with right now. Economic uncertainty, the job report came out. There's a lot of greatness around that. Job security, market shifts. If you watch the market, that can create fear, along with personal instability. Number three, we're going to build perspective on who we are. Because I think one of the things that happens all too often is we forget when we've overcome fear in the past. Like, how have I overcome fear before? I'm going to remind you a bit. We're going to identify what your anchors are. We're going to turn to the anchor that I've talked about when it comes to uncertainty. I'll share what that anchor is. And then we're going to make a very tangible list of things that we can do to navigate fear in the future. And finally, I'm going to challenge you to take one purposeful action at the end of this show. Here's the thing. Uncertainty isn't a sign that you should stop. It's your signal. It's your signal. Was it a signal for? Keep listening, and I'll share that with you. So what's scaring you right now? Is it financial? That could be it. You could be looking at the rest of the year saying, man, what's going on? It could be your job. Like, hey, what I see going on in this environment, what I see with the shift. I know one of the things I saw a note that a colleague of mine wrote, that he noticed there's a lot of fear in leadership because so much has changed. AI has changed so much. Many leaders feel like they're too busy to keep up. And so I don't know what's coming. I know that there's a shift with AI. With my lack of understanding or even lack of knowledge in terms of keeping up with everything that's happening in this new era, am I dating myself without even knowing it? That's a fear that exists among many executives and many leaders. If it's not, you at least want to be aware of it. And, maybe it's your health. Maybe you had a health scare. That's what's on your mind right now. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Maybe it's your relationship. Maybe you got like, man, is this going to last? But what are your fears? Give me a phone call, 773-591-1690. I know that's a big question, you guys. Even if you sense it, but you can't distinguish it, give me a phone call. Let's work on that together. You know what I'm really noticing is that what happens in our external environments begins to really push up against what's happening for us internally. And what do I mean by that? One of the things that comes to mind for me is 2 Timothy 1:7, where we have not been given a spirit of fear. Like we've been, and I love that statement because we've been given a spirit, but not a spirit of fear. So then if I'm experiencing fear, that means that it has to be external. This is not something that has to live inside me. And what I have been given is a spirit of power, a spirit of love, and a spirit of a sound mind. And again, when I'm filled with anxiety and I can't think clearly, like I lack clarity, that means that my mind is not sound. Something's going on. And so this is really what I'm talking about today. And I really want to get it underneath it. Like, fear may show up, but it should not have the wheel. It should not be what's driving me. It should remain external.
What really concerns me, in spite of my medical issues that's going on right now, is just the food system across where this country is going with food, trying to find organic food, and, I'm really concerned about that, even they call so-called organic, I call myself purchasing organic food, but even, that's not even organic. And it's, right. The fact that they really, I really believe that they're poisoning food. I mean, what we eat is, what we are, and they liberally putting this stuff in the food, the water system, and just what we're ingesting.
No doubt.
It's just where this country is going.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Gino. Yeah,
right.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that's something that is on all of our minds when it comes to relevant fears. That's a good one. And here's what I would add to it. I believe that many of us don't even realize that because of what we're eating, that external fear that we're experiencing is becoming internal because it's in the hormones of the meat. I mean, those animals before they were slaughtered, because they're not being slaughtered in an ethical way, in a biblical way. Like there's a way to kill meat, right? We were instructed on how to kill meat, that a lot of those hormones are getting into us. And so the anxiety they felt before death, we're feeling as a result of consuming that meat. And then let's not talk about, all the antibiotics. And I was telling a friend of mine, in terms of, he's like, why did you stop eating chicken? And I said, look, man, if I tell you, it's going to kind of make you. And I was like, well, all I needed to hear was that they were spraying ammonia on the chicken so that it wouldn't turn yellow. And after that, I was like, come on, man, I'm not consuming. Yeah,
all of it. I just mentioned produce, exactly everything. They sell the food. The lunch meat, the deli meat is proven to be carcinogenic. It's labeled as carcinogenic.
Yeah, it's carcinogenic.
Yet they sell it to children.
Yeah.
They sell it. The little Lunchables. So I look here real quick. I was watching some. I don't know. I saw it on YouTube or something, and I realized that the Food and Drug Administration, they should be two separate entities. You got the same people who
kind of makes sense, right?
Approving the drugs, approve the poison food.
Yeah, ain't that something?
And I thought, so I'm like, look at this. Wow. So they approve poisonous food. You get sick, and then they approve the drugs that make you sick and definitely don't heal you. Mm-hmm. So, that's my biggest concern, in this country.
It's a good concern.
Yeah.
It's a valid fear. Thanks for the phone call, Gino.
Appreciate
you. Man, that's a good one. And by the way, I'm not looking just to distinguish fears and raise all this concern without giving you some type of antidote. Like, so how do we handle this? I'm going to talk about how my family and I have handled this, not tactically, but strategically, so you can figure out tactically what you should do. I think everybody is in a different situation, but that's a good one. Like, I'm scared of the food. I'm with you, brother. And it's one of the reasons we take a lot of diligence with how we shop, what we buy in terms of what you call food, and then what we consume, how we prepare it, how we eat, and then even how we detox and cleanse just in case we miss something. So that's a good one. I want you to know this. Fear is very expensive. And the reason I believe that fear is expensive is because it charges interest in stress, procrastination, and typically additional bad decisions on top of it, right? And so I really want us to reframe something that, first and foremost, fear may have a voice, but you should not let it get a vote in terms of how you move, the actions that you take or you don't. Fear can have a voice, like it's whispering in your ear. You can feel the sensation of it, but it should not get a vote. Like, the last thing you want to do is act from a place of fear. We can go through every fable, every nursery, nursery rhyme, all of them. Whenever somebody took action from fear, we saw what happened to us. Never good. Never good. So we've learned that already. So then, what does fear look like? Just in case there's someone listening, they like, well, I'm sorry that everybody's dealing with all that. I'm not sure that I'm particularly afraid right now or anything's going on with me. What does fear look like? Just to make sure that we're all in the same place. Because one of the things I noticed when I was working with clients this week is that they were trying to describe what was going on for them, but they hadn't necessarily labeled it fear quite yet. And I'm like, it sounds like you're scared. And they're like, you know what? You're right. That's what's going on. How does fear actually show up? So tactically, here's what happens when you're afraid. Number one, you avoid it. So think of all the things that we've talked about so far. A lot of these things, I think many of us avoid because we just don't know. I'm not gonna listen to anything economic. I avoid it. In my relationship, as soon as we try to have a serious conversation, we argue. I avoid it. Right? Fear typically shows up as avoidance. Man, my money ain't right now. You got a stack of bills sitting on the counter. You haven't opened them because you're afraid. You don't want to see the reality of it. So you avoid what's there. It's there. So we avoid it. That's number one. That's one of the things we do. With that avoidance comes procrastination, right? Because as I avoid, I put off. And then there are other things that I know I should do, actions I know I should take. But because fear is at the root, I'll push the action off because I'm afraid. One of the things that we talked about in the Slayer Goals community last week was the fear of success. Sometimes we're avoiding action because of the repercussion of success it could have in my life. And I'm scared of what that might look like because it could change everything. The other tactical thing that happens when fear shows up is we overthink. Right? What about this? So then if I do that, what about this? And then we start laying out the charts on what we should do, why we shouldn't do it. And we go into analysis paralysis. Right? So I'm thinking about all these different, but it's like I'm not doing anything. I'm not taking any action. And then finally, some of us will get into a doom scrolling loop. Because don't let the algorithm figure out you're scared. It's going to be like, oh, you scared? You want to get more scared? Watch this. Right. Next thing you know, you can see everything that needs to be handled across the entire planet. And that can be incredibly overwhelming. So that's one of the ways fear shows up in our lives. Here's another way. Indecision. You know what? I don't know what to do about, the dollar sinking. So, because I ain't going to do nothing. Maybe I'll spend the dollars I got. Why? They still worth something, right? But you go into this almost like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. And all of this is having an emotional impact. Because again, remember, like you have emotional currency. How we create is through emotion. And so if I allow fear to become my dominating emotion, then I become short-tempered. You see the cycle here? I'm typically fatigued because, let me tell you, man, anxiety will wear you out. You don't have to do no work. But if you sit there in anxiety, you're working. And it will wear you out. It will exhaust you. And so you're fatigued. And the one thing you don't have when you're sitting in fear is confidence. No confidence. So complete loss of confidence. And confidence is typically what you need to get started. So basically the spark that you need to take action is secretly, seductively taken from you. So then you're like, all right, Linal, you described that well. That's what fear looks like. I'm in fear. So then what? Now what? What do you do? Ooh, this is a good one. I just read one of the comments here on YouTube. And it's from a sister, got a doctorate, lost my job due to an executive order while I was out on medical leave. She's one of the 300,000 black women who have been impacted by the executive order. that stripped away a lot of jobs. And I'm guessing in that DEI space, right? More fear, more uncertainty, more unpredictability. And I'm sorry that happened to you, sis. Keep listening. Please keep listening. Share this with any other sisters you know who are in similar situations. All right. So somebody on Facebook said fear is a byproduct of what you're thinking. I would say fear is a byproduct not only of what you're thinking, but it's also a byproduct of the external environment. Because one of the things I also notice is that a lot of what we're taking in, our inputs, are based in fear. We don't see it necessarily, but it's there. It's in the inputs that we're taking in, and so we got to deal with those. We got to deal with those too. All right. So then what are some strategies? Well, the first thing is to notice when any outcome in your life feels uncontrollable. Because this is when fear hits the hardest. Like when you feel like I have absolutely no control. And so I just want you to notice the things where you feel like you have no control. Because one of the big mistakes that we make is we will place a lot of concern in areas where we have no influence. And that's wasted energy. And like I said, fear already is burning energy. So the last thing we want to do is to be focused on the things that we cannot control. This comes from one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people. One of those habits is highly effective people do not focus on things they cannot control. Right? They're like, okay, I gotta, you know how they say, let go and let God. Like, I gotta let go. And like, I cannot, like, so one of the things I cannot control, and you guys know I'm financially minded, all that kind of, but what I cannot control is how the U.S. handles its debt. You know, is it going to impact my, yeah, okay. Well, what I can control is how it impacts us. So how do I set up the proper trust and things for my family that protects us financially, regardless of what's going on externally, right? But in terms of what they're doing, I can't control that. I can't spend a lot of time thinking about that. The other part is that typically we feel safe only when we can predict. But there's very little that we can really predict. You can't. And so almost anything that you believe you can predict is a story too. And I think one of the things that we have to do strategically is begin to realize that I don't have any control. If I can actually succumb to the belief that control is an illusion, right? Which I believe with every fiber of my being. Control is an illusion. Okay? Any element of control has been given to me by the Creator. And He is giving me that ability to take volition and move things forward for whatever period of time that is. At any moment, if He takes His hands off, things can go out of control. It's that simple. And if I sit and rest in that, and I'm clear on that, however, at the same time, I'll also sit within the certainty of His protection and love. That's the only thing I know. What I can do is control my relationship with the Creator. That's one controllable. Everything else is out of control. That's it. That's a second strategy. The third thing is when you don't have any plans, like any action plans whatsoever, yeah, okay, you can't control, but you should still have a plan. You say, well, now what sense does that make? Best example I can give you is back in World War II with Dwight D. Eisenhower. I gave this example before where he was like, hey, the vision is full victory, nothing else. I don't know what you're going to hit on those battles, on those shores when we get there. But the one thing I want you to focus on is full victory, nothing else. There was another quote that he has is like, you know, hey, planning is indispensable, but let's be clear when it comes to war. You know, planning is, it can change in a moment's notice, right? That's not the direct quote. One of my favorite quotes is Mike Tyson is like, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? But that doesn't mean you don't get in the ring without a plan. Doesn't mean you don't get in the ring without a plan. Where am I going here? When you don't have a plan, then in the absence of the plan, fear will fill the room. It's part of the vacuum principle. We're going to talk about some principles later and how we can use principles to actually tone down our fear. But when you don't have anything filling your mind already in terms of action plans, then fear will fill it like a vacuum, man. Vacuum principle. Nothing there. Let's fill it with fear. So strategically, if I'm going to handle the fears that we talked about earlier, food, economics, jobs, you name it, I need to have some type of plan. But there has to be a way I think about this plan. And we're going to talk about this in the second hour. The law of focus. And the law of focus basically says that whatever we give attention amplifies. Whatever we give attention amplifies. So one of the things I would say, to Mike, if you're still listening, brother, that the things that we're most concerned about amplify when we give it our concern. Again, this is why I do not give my concern to things I cannot control. I would prefer to follow the law of focus and amplify the things that I'm up to, amplify my purpose. There's an answer in that for those of you all who know. Amplify my purpose. Purpose extinguishes fear. Amplify my identity, my God-given identity as a creator. The law of focus. Attention amplifies. So I should be amplifying the things I've been given, the talents, the strengths, the passions. I should be amplifying those things in the face of fear. Fear feeds on attention. And so the more I rehearse the worst case scenarios, the more real they will feel. But here's also the problem. Because I'm a creator. The more I rehearse the worst case scenarios, the more I begin to actually create them as realities in my life. There's some things that we shouldn't even give brain power to because of our ability to create, our capacity to create. I've always said it that look around you right now, and whatever you see around you is what you've created. You've created that reality. So the law of focus basically states that whatever I rehearse the most is what amplifies in my mind, in my energy, but also in my life. Which means that if I don't have anything outside of this external environment that's causing me fear to mentally rehearse, I'm in trouble. Now y'all see why I like goals so much. Now y'all see why I like vision so much. Because I need to have something that is drawing my attention, that my attention can amplify. So when fear shows up, I don't have a lot of room for that because, based on the vacuum principle, the room is already filled with vision. We're going to talk more about that in the second hour. Here's the second part. This is the other principle I really want us to understand as we begin to focus on this. So we talked about the law of focus and how our attention amplifies things. The more attention I give it, the more it's amplified in my life. Okay. I believe that's why, you look at some of these Wall Street guys making a lot of money. Everything's going great. Their attention is on the market. The market falls. They go to a building and jump. Why? Because there's nothing else that mattered to them. That's what had their attention. That's what they were focused on. And there's so much more to focus on. The market's important, but it's not as important as my spirit. It's not as important as my family. It's not as important as my children. It's not as important as my goals. It's not important as my purpose. Here's the second principle. The law of emotional momentum. Emotions intensify when they are repeated without interruption. And they weaken when they're disrupted by action and clarity. I want you all, man, I hope this is starting to click for some folks, okay? Emotions intensify when they are repeated without interruption. So let me give you an example. I'll give you a real clean, clear one, right? My wife and I got a chance to spend time with each other without the children yesterday. And the more time we spent together, the more connected we felt, right? It's like from being at home, then to going out to eat, then we did massages together. It was like we just, watched a movie together, like, what's happening there, right? It's the law of emotional momentum. It's like we get intertwined in our own circle. Nothing else existed. Y'all follow? Like nothing else existed. And all we had to do was focus on each other. And when the law of focus basically states that when you are consistently focused on something, then it grows in your mind and it grows in your behavior. Period. So what's the correlation here? Fear feeds on attention. But let me go back to this law of emotional momentum. Fear becomes stronger when you loop it mentally. Whatever you loop mentally becomes stronger. This is why affirmations are so powerful, you all. These little tidbits that I put in, like even with my clients over the past week, and I would say, man, 80% of them dealing with fear, right? 80%. This is in the executive arena when I'm talking to leaders and, in boardrooms. It's interesting. I was talking to one executive who leads at a prestigious university here in Chicago. And he was like, man, what's going on with this fear in the space? I'm like, yeah, you perceive that? Like, yeah, it's a lot of fear right now. And I'm like, I notice it too. I see it in my client. We were having this conversation Friday. A lot of fear right now. People just scared. Are they even clear about what they're scared of? Right? Well, if I'm scared, I want you all to get this. If I'm scared, the law of emotional momentum basically states that fear, by the way, fear is an emotion. And so if I give myself to that emotion, it will intensify, especially when I repeat that emotion without interruption. So then I become consumed by it because let me tell you all something. One of the reasons I'm using principle as I teach is because principle cannot lie. This is how it goes, right? These are laws and principles the Creator put in. This is one of the reasons why it's like, don't fear. Like, you look all through the scriptures like, leave fear alone. Why? Because the Creator understood, Yahushua understood these principles and laws. And they're like, man, look. Don't allow those laws to misuse you. You use them. The law of emotional momentum basically says, like, look, man, if you let this thing intensify, it will begin and let it repeat without interruption. It will take over. The only way to weaken this emotional intensity is to actually disrupt it with action and clarity. Action, and I believe it takes clarity first, like clearing it out, and then the vacuum principle, filling what you cleared out up with something else. Purpose is so important. This is why the purpose course is so important. When you gain clarity on the promise of purpose, it'll make you do radical things. People thought I was crazy when I walked out of corporate America in 2015. How could this guy ever make what he is making here, doing this coaching thing? And you want to know what? I wasn't clear on how either. But it's not about the how. It's about clarity of the vision. I saw very clearly what I was supposed to be doing. And so I went off to go do those things. 10 years later, it makes me shudder to think if fear had locked me down, I wouldn't be where I am. I've been called to do something. And if that is the reason for my being, then I must do it. But that is the power, clarity, and purpose. And if you're not living with that type of clarity, then you have to be at the Discovering and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop on January 31st. You can go to linalharris.com and join there. I'm gonna ask the question of those of you listening. Don't look it up. Don't Google it. But we're talking about fear today. My cousin is on the stream on Facebook, and he asked a very interesting question. He said, "How many times in the Bible does God say, 'Fear not'?" And so I went and I Googled it, and I was blown away by the answer. And I'm just curious, like, how many of you right now do you know? Like, what would you say? What would you say? You haven't looked it up. What would you say? How many times in the Bible would you say there's a phrase that says, "Do not be afraid," or a phrase that says, "Fear not"?
I'm thinking between 10 to 20 times because it depends on which book you're in.
Say it again. Say it again. Say it again.
I said between 10 to 20 times depending on which book in the Bible you're reading.
10 to 20 times throughout the entire Bible? All 66 books?
Yes.
Okay. You said 10. All right. One of the folks on Facebook said 50. All right. Let me see if I got any other. Somebody said 300. Cecilia said 1,000. Okay. Now, you all believe in the significance of numbers? You do? You believe in the significance of numbers? You should if you don't. I can walk through the significance of numbers with you all another day. But numbers are very significant. All right. In fact, before I share this, let me just see what the significance of this number might be. Give me 1 second. I'm going to give you the number. By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Linal Harris. I'm your host and coach right here on Inspirational Perspective. And today we're talking fear. Today we're talking fear. In fact, what no one tells you about fear and how to find your next step when your life feels uncertain. I know that's a lot of us, and that's one of the reasons this really dropped in my spirit to talk about today. Okay, so the question I just posed was, how many times is the phrase "fear not" or "do not be afraid" in the Bible? Don't Google it. Like, be honest with yourself. Just kind of think about it. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm also looking up the significance of the numbers. Phew. All right. Okay. So I think I got some more people down here. Somebody said 9 times. Somebody said 2,070 times. Let me see what we got here on YouTube. 1,700 times on YouTube. Somebody just hit the number on the head on YouTube as well. Miss Betty Walker hit it on the head. Okay. Here's the answer, you all. The phrases "do not be afraid" or "fear not," you can find it 365 times in the Bible. Which means, hold on, check this out. Which means that you have a verse in the Bible that supports you with extinguishing fear every day of the year. Oh, boom. Every day of the year. Now, let me give you the numeric. I want to give you the numeric importance of this, right? Because, like, when I saw 365, my mind was blown on a whole nother level. Let me blow your mind on another level. As a matter of fact, if you know somebody should be listening right now, you need to get them. Like, text them, say, you need to be listening to Inspirational Perspective right now. I'm about to blow your mind. About to blow your mind, okay? Now, get this. 365. Do you know the numerical meaning of 3, the number 3? Like the spiritual numeric meaning of the word of the number 3. Anybody? Drop it in the, because we're gonna go 365. I want to do that next. I want to, like, let's blow your mind for real. Okay. All right. I'm gonna blow your mind for real. So, "do not be afraid" or "fear not" is in the Bible 365 times, which tells us that we got 365 scriptures that support us with not being afraid every day of the year. You already know I'm going to go look them up, right? I'm out. That's that's like the next. I'm like, all right. But get this. In Hebrew, every number has a meaning. Okay? And so these numbers, 365, have meanings. Because in Hebrew, the way Hebrew works is like, every number had a meaning. All right. The number 3 is the number of God, right? Think of the Trinity. All right. The number 6 is the number for man, right? That's one of the ways 666 is misused, right? Remember, everything is the creator's first. It's because of, the carbon and all that. Those numbers mark the element of man, right? Okay. Number 5, listen to me. Number 5 is the number of grace. God's grace for man. Don't fear. Don't fear. Why are you afraid? Do not be afraid. Fear not. Are y'all as mind blown as I am right now? Give me some hearts on Facebook if you just had a moment just now. If you're like, you got 365 scriptures that now let me give you the significance of this. If you don't get it, right? If you don't get this, and by the way, this is the benefit of being a believer. It's like, this is the benefit of being a believer, right? Because then you get the antidote. And I always tell folks this. I'm like, look, as a coach, this is the anchor that I work from. So this is not your anchor. Then there are going to be some things that go over your head or you just can't get with. But if you can get with it, oh, man. It's like, now, let's talk about the word, right? By the way, I didn't even mean to go here. But this is like, we're talking fear, and it's already called out for you 365 times in the Bible. Do not be afraid. Fear not. Right? So that means I got a scripture for every day of the year. And with that scripture for every day of the year, if I understand the power of the word, it's called out real well in Hebrews, right? It's living and powerful. Another way to say it is like it's living and active. Yahushua said, man should not live by bread alone, but every word. Right? Every word. So I'm living off this. David said, the word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. I hope y'all. Anyway, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, which means that 365 days the Creator is with me. There's no reason for me to be afraid. Fear not. Do not be afraid. Isaiah said the grass withers, the flowers fall, but the word of God endures forever. So I got a permanent antidote. That's better than any strategy. It's better than any principle. I don't know if y'all as excited about this as I am. So that's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He knew you was going to be afraid. He knew you were going to have moments as a human being. And so he was like, let me make sure this is called out 365 times. So that way, when they get on the Gregorian calendar and they got 365 days, they can have something every day to help them navigate fear. Come on, man. Okay. That's the ultimate strategy. I want y'all to know. 365, God, man, grace. What I want to do is I want to take you on a quick journey. Because sometimes we forget. We forget when we had a light on the path. We forget when we've overcome something in the past. Man, 2001. Now, most of y'all listening to me, I know some of you, I got people on my team that were born that year or 1 year old, right? But a lot of us, we remember 2001. I remember 2001. I was an adult. Shock and uncertainty. Not knowing what's going to happen. That's behind us now. Did we make it? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Then 7 years later, 2008, economic pain and instability. Did we make it? Are you still here? Were you resilient? Did you bounce back? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. 2013, rebuilding after disruption, right? 5 years after 2000, we couldn't even get that far away, right? And another disruption. Are you still here? Did you overcome it? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Did you survive? Did you eat? Were you taken care of? Yes, you were. Yes, you were. It reminds me of Yahushua when he says, like, you know, look at the sparrow, how well taken care of it is. Does not your heavenly Father care about you more? We get all caught up. What's happening in 2026? What's going on with this administration? And it's like, man, are you kidding me? Here's the thing. The decades will come. And with them, they're going to bring us their challenges, right? Because humans, we have challenges. And every time we have overcome that uncertainty. Every time. Every time. What makes this time different? Uncertainty isn't your stop sign. It's your signal to get aligned. To get aligned. Okay. So what am I doing here? I really want to give you all a template, right? Because first thing we did is we distinguished the fear. I let you know why you don't want fear to live in the space, right? And we already know that from the Creator. But sometimes, like, let's make it tangible for us as human beings in this experience. All right, so why don't we want it in the space? Well, because tactically, when we allow fear in the space and we see what it looks like, we broke down what it looks like, right? Then what we know is that the law of focus says our attention amplifies it. What we know is that the law of emotional momentum says that it can begin to take us over creatively. We don't want those things. All right, so then how do we begin to move past this? Let's go back tactical again. What did I just do? Study the past. Like, you've had wins before. You forget that you're a winner. You forget that you've overcome things that you thought were insurmountable, that you've been in tough situations, tight circumstances before, and you were delivered. Like, did you forget? Did you forget that? Look to the past. In the previous hard seasons of your life, what worked? What worked for you? Did laying down and saying, woe is me work? Or was it when you got into action? When you created a plan? When you asked the Creator for a vision? When you got connected to purpose? Like, what happened? Tactically, what happened? I want you to identify not only when you survived, but when you were thriving. What skills did you gain from it? Like, you're probably in a learning, so you went from, being at effect to being fully responsible and learning. Okay, what's next? What do I need to take on? What's going on out here? And so the strategy when fear shows up is to use historical proof to claim what's yours and to calm your nervous system and to dispel the emotion of fear. Like, wait a second, man. I be winning. Not through my own power, but through the support of the Creator, I be winning. Like, what? Why am I? Fear not. Do not be afraid. It's that simple. And I've handled uncertainty before. Not alone, but with the support of the Creator. And whenever I've teamed up, I've always won. And the idea here is if you can't do anything else, to borrow courage from your own track record. Like, look what the Creator's done for you over your life. Why would he abandon you now? The fact that you would even think that tells us that fear and the great deceiver are winning. I don't know about you, but I don't want that in my life. Okay, Linal, that sounds great. You know, the tactics and strategies around that. But, you know, break it down for me. Like, how is this some type of a truth? Well, let's go back to the principles and laws. I'm going to keep doing this, man. Let's go back to the principles and laws. The law of perspective. The reason I brought up 2001, 2008, and 2013 is to remind you that when uncertainty passes, the fears of the past shrink too. Time shrinks fear. So, and by the way, like if you're not a believer, like you can use this one. It's still a law. It's still a law of the creator, but this might be easy for you to wrap your mind around. But nothing's permanent. Everything comes in cycles. The law of rhythm, everything is in cycles, man. And so when you go through, like, let me tell you something. When I look at the cycles of my business as an entrepreneur, right? There are up cycles, there are down cycles. Like, there's no anxiety. I just see it as cycles. It's like, oh, and then guess what happens if I go into a down cycle? Every time, guess what happened? I had an up cycle, an amazing up cycle, right? What do we do during up cycles? This is what I do. I mean, this is what the scriptures say. I put it away, right? And then I might feel a little anxious when I got to tap into the grains that I stored up in a down cycle, but that's why it's there. The law of perspective says that time shrinks fear. I really want us to see how moving with uncertainty, not denying it, and looking to the past to build our resilience is how we apply adaptation. Life changes. And the people who thrive are the ones who adjust when the approach of the past isn't working anymore without losing their values, right? I'm not telling you to lose your values, but you make the shift in alignment with your values. Fear doesn't mean stop. Most of the time, it just means you care. I'm afraid for my health. I care about my health. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes something needs to shake me and get my attention. I'm afraid about what's happening in my relationship. I care. I need to be shaken and my attention needs to go into that place. I'm afraid about what's happening in my finances. I care. My attention needs to go into that space. I'm afraid about what's happening to me spiritually. I care. My attention needs to go to that space. Not to the fear itself, but to the space. Oh, I'm afraid if I lose this connection, then what do I need to do? Clamp down on my connection. I'm afraid about my finances. What do I need to do? I need to dig into my finances. I'm afraid about my relationship. What do I need to do? I need to attend to my relationship. I'm afraid about my health. What do I need to do? I need to tend to my health. So what if fear was a signal? That's the first thing that nobody tells you about fear. It's just a signal, right? It's not a place you're supposed to live. It's a signal. You don't live at the stoplight. Light turns red. You don't live there, right? You pause and you look around until when the light turns green, you look both ways and you go. Here's the other thing no one tells you about fear. Fear grows when it's vague, right? So we want to distinguish it. That's what I did earlier. I'm like, so what? Because then when I point to what I'm afraid of, then I can start to run principles across it. Well, wait a second. I'm afraid of something I can't control. You know, Stephen Covey says that I should only be, putting my mind and my momentum towards things I can control. So I need to let that go, right? We distinguish it. Fear grows when it's vague. It shrinks when I get clear. This is why I'm a proponent for clarity. Tomorrow, Slayer Goals members, we have a working session, strategic working session. Part of what we're going to be doing is just like clarity. Here's the other part that no one tells you about fear. Fear is a liar. Fear is going to lie. It will. Now, I want you to go back to 2001, 2008, 2013. What did fear tell you back then? You're about to lose everything. You ain't going to have nothing. Well, was that true? Look at yourself now. Was it true? So did fear lie to you? Why are you believing it today? Ooh, look at your health. You're about to die. Are you dead? Are you still here? Did fear lie to you? Why are you listening to it today? Take action. You broke. You ain't going to be able to make it. Has fear told you that before? Are you still here? Did you make it? Why are you letting fear lie to you today? Fear is a liar. And then here's what it does. Because fear comes from the great deceiver, what fear will do is it will use facts. Is the dollar weak right now? Yes, it is. That's a fact, right? Is gold up right now? Yes, it is. That's a fact. Linal, I don't have any gold. Oh, my God, fear. It's like it will use fear and facts to deceive you into becoming overly concerned. And so what it does is it takes real data and then it lies to you about it. It lies to you by creating false conclusions because nothing's over yet. But it's telling you what with the real data, here's where you're going to end. That's a lie. That's a lie. No one tells you this, though, right? Fear is a liar. The other thing that fear does is that it takes your worship from the Creator and starts to put your worship into control. Because then we try to control the situation. And when I'm scared, should I be the one in control? Should I be trying to run it? Or should I just be like, I got myself here. Let me let you get me out. Right? But fear will con you into make you believe that you have some level of control. It's a lie. Control is an illusion. Here's the other part. No one tells you about fear. Fear is not reduced by thinking about it. You can't think your way out of fear. You cannot. Let me tell you, you cannot think your way out of fear. All right. If you obsess about the fear, you can't think your way out of it. The only thing you can do is start to take actionable steps. That's how you reduce fear. Take actionable steps. Actionable steps. Fear gets a voice, right? Because it's a signal, but it should not get a vote. It should not control anything. It should not control anything. Now that we know what no one tells us about fear, and the biggest thing that hopefully you're taking away from this is that fear is a liar, right? It uses real data to draw false conclusions. It will deceive you. So now that we know that, then tactically, let's go back to where we started. Can you name your fear in one sentence so you can see the lie, right? And then replace it with a truth. Because this is the idea to reframe it. If you believe it, you reframe it through the word, right? There's no, like if you're a believer, but we're human, we fall into fear. There's no reason to stay, man. It's like, hopefully you're getting this. And I'm going to tell you, like some of us, including me, probably need to listen to this again and again and again. Like to really, let me wrap my mind around this. I know I'm going to listen to it again because I'm jealous of y'all because y'all get to, I want to listen. I'm for real, right? Okay. Name the fear in one sentence and then replace it with the truth. What's the ultimate truth? You got 365 of them. We just talked about it. The ultimate truth, right? Like you don't got to take not one phrase or quote from me. I don't know. That could be That could be off. I tell y'all all the time, like, look it up. But 365 scriptures that say, do not fear or fear not. You got a truth right there. Name the fear, put a truth. Reframe it. Reframe it. And then take one small action in faith. I believe it. I believe it. Because we've already distinguished that movement begins to dispel fear. That's tactically what I would tell you to do. Now, strategically, what you do is when fear spikes, reduce the complexity. One truth, one step. You got 365 truths. I would just go straight to one truth, one step, one scripture, one step. And then what we do know, right, scientifically, here's what we do know, right? We know that the law of vibration is true. We know that as human beings, we give off a vibration. So we know that if I'm consumed with fear, that that's my current vibration. How do I shift that vibration? Is I have to get into a mindset of gratitude. What we also know through science, like I say, don't believe me, go check it out, go look it up, is that when I shift to gratitude, when I express gratitude, it actually changes the rhythm of my heart. If the rhythm of my heart changes, that's what creates my vibration changes. If my vibration changes, now I'm in a vibration of gratitude. I've actually shifted myself from fear to gratitude. What is gratitude? Gratitude is an expression of love. Fear to love. That's the strategy. This is why I'm like, this ain't no one time listen. Hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching right now, do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. Seriously, it means the world that you're here. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. Now that I'm outside of this fear, I need to get clear. The law of clarity. The law of clarity states that specificity reduces anxiety. You like, if you ever wondered how I could, I'll tell you, I'll say, hey, I tell my clients this all the time. Like, if you're experiencing a healthy dose of anxiety, what that means is that you're not clear. You need to get clear. Right? Where does that come from? It comes from the law of clarity that basically states that specificity reduces anxiety. When you're vague, fear is powerful. When you know the specific fear, now it can be addressed. Get clear. That's why I started the show with what are you afraid of? What's going on? Get clear. Somebody would say you shouldn't put fear into space, Linal. It's like, well, we put it in a space so we can dissect it, get clear, right, and move past it. So what I just shared with you follows the law of clarity, right? Because I'm like, name it, reframe it, take an action, right? Name it, reframe it, take an action, get clear. Here's the last principle I'm going to share, the law of inner governance. And by the way, what I love about the principles and laws is that they're all framed in truths, right? You can find all this through, the scripture, man. The law of inner governance, what you repeatedly allow in your mind, inputs become outputs, become part of your operating system. If you're consumed with fear, it's because you've been allowing it into your mind through some. So now, now that you know how to reframe fear, step out of fear, how do we stop it at the gate? Oh, now I need to change my inputs, because how did this get in here in the first place? Where am I allowing fear into my life? Through the news, what I watch, what I listen to, what I eat. We talked about that earlier, right? What's going on? Let me ask you this. And this is a very, very personal for me. how I began to dispel fear and get back into action. I'm going to give you 4 questions I ask myself. So if you can write it down, write it down. First question I ask myself is, Linal, what do you love? Because why would I go to love? Well, love is the polar opposite of fear, right? The law of polarity states that for everything that exists, there has to be an opposite. So if I'm in fear, if I can get myself into love, that means I can remove myself from fear. Is that making, do I need to say it again? Let me say it again. If the law of polarity states that everything, and by the way, this is a universal law and it's one of God's laws, right? This is Genesis 1. Let there be light, darkness. There was a void of darkness. Let there be light. Boom. Now there's an opposite, right? It all started with the law of polarity. So then if I believe that and I say to myself, well, I'm in fear right now, then how do I get out of fear into the polar opposite, which is love? Here's what I do. Linal, who do you love? Love my wife. I can start to feel that. I feel so blessed. I love my children. I start to feel that. I love my family. I start to feel love. And then I'll go to, what do you love building? Purpose. Purpose extinguishes fear. Man, I love building leaders. I love building my community. Love, love, love. This is why I was created. This is why I'm here. I love building my community. Number 3, what do you love protect? Man, I love to protect the community. I love to protect my family. I will die for these things. I love protecting my integrity. Like now I'm in love. Who are you? Then I'm like, and then I'll ask myself, who are you called to be? Because purpose extinguishes fear. Finally, who are you called to be? What is your purpose? What is your identity? And then I remind myself of who I am, not because I gave it to me, but because the Creator marked me as that. It's hard to stay afraid after that, man. Well, wait a second. This is who I be? So I'm filled with the love for my wife, my children, my family, my community. I'm filled with the love around what I've been building, what I love to build. I'm filled with the love of what I'm willing to protect and take care of. And then I'm clear on who I'm called to be. So whatever this is I'm feeling, right? Whatever external force this is trying to permeate, like it doesn't belong inside. What belongs inside is what I love, what I'm building, what I'm protecting, and who I've been called to be. And if I'm connected to that, I'm filled with love. And if I'm filled with love, there's no more room for fear. Vacuum principle, the other way around. No more room for fear. What fear does is fear will ask and conclude, what am I going to lose? I'm going to lose it. That's what it does, right? Love asked, what do I love? How do I grow it? Remember, fear is a signal. It's for clarity. It doesn't get a vote. It's a voice. None but a stop sign. Oh, let me pause. Let me look. That's it. Y'all get this? Just in case, because I've gotten this. I've gotten long letters, man, from believers who are like, I got a problem with the universal laws, Linal. I don't think you should be teaching that, this, that, and the other. Let me ground it in something for you, okay? Let me ground this in something for you because, I'm at a point now where I'm like, we perish for lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. Let me really ground you in something. 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love. That's the law of polarity right there. Total opposites. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear. I'm be clear about this since it was Valentine's Day. If I love my wife, there is no fear in that love. I'm not planning for the day that my wife leaves me. There's no fear in that love. Perfect love casteth out fear. What if she leaves? You You can't, give everything to her. You can't put her name on that. Perfect love casteth out fear. Somebody might say, well, that's crazy. Perfect love casteth out fear. Perfect love begets love. Right? And so if I'm loving her that way, then that love permeates her. By the way, the rest of the scripture says, because fear hath torment, which means that if I'm consumed with fear, I'm in torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. You can't have both. So how do I know it's the antidote? It's right there. It's right there. All right, so now that we're past fear, then I gain clarity and I start to ask for a vision. Hey, all right, so if I'm situated in love and now I'm clear, like I need you to feel my clarity. I need you to help me build a vision. How do you build a vision? Well, you get focused and clear on what matters most right now. What matters? What are you looking to transform and change in the next 90 days? What are you looking to transform and change in 2026? You start to make a list. We don't sit in fear. We start taking action. What does winning look like by the end of this quarter if you've turned things around? You get into action. Oh, I got laid off. I'm part of the Trump few that, not few, many, 300,000, right? That, what do you do? Well, now, you don't realize I've been going at this, the last 3 quarters. Nothing's happened. Let me tell you something I learned years ago. Any action that's sourced in fear creates more of it. So if you've been taking action, I want you to really hear me on this. If you've been taking action from fear, you're just going to create more of it. That's the source. That's the seed. Now you got to reframe for love. If you take action from a place of love, you create more of it. One of the reasons we're not realizing what we intend to realize based on the actions we're taking is because the actions are sourced in the wrong place. They're fear-based actions. How do I know this? I have coached executives. I want you to hear this. I had an executive call me. He was like, hey, I'm looking to get a new job. For whatever reason, whatever I'm doing in the interview is not working. It's not working. I heard that you're a phenomenal coach. Can you coach me to shift how I show up in interviews? All right. So I listened to him. I'm like, yeah, man, there's a whole lot of what doesn't work and all that in your language. Helped him distinguish his essence. I'm like, you need to come from that powerful place inside you, what God gave you, what you were created with. That's how you show up to an interview. Love, right? Worked together for a few months. Boom, hired. He had been going a year before that. Nothing. How do I know this works? Because if the source is fear, that's what you're putting out. You think as a CEO and an employer, somebody sitting in front of me for an interview and I can sense fear? Like, man, they seem talented, but I don't want that in my space. I don't want that on my team. What on your team? I don't know. Something about them. Something, an energy, a vibration. Why? Because we all are electromagnetic entities, right? We're pushing off things. If fear has been what you've been pushing off, then people have been pushing it away. They don't want more of that. If I source it in love, recreate it in love, even though it's the same activity, it's a different activity. You're going to create that. That part right there, if you don't get it, all right, tactically, what do you do to clarify your vision? There are 3 visions I believe that every person should have. Okay. The second 2 being the most important. If you can have a 90-day vision, what I want to accomplish this quarter, I think that's amazing. Like, I know what I want to accomplish this quarter coming out of March. It's we halfway through right now, February 15th. And I'm like, man. And what I've noticed is there's been a great deal of resistance. And so it's like, got to turn it up. The second half of the quarter, got to turn it up, right? And a great deal of resistance, but also some wins. But got to turn it up. I know I'm clear on what I want to accomplish in the next 90 days, right? I'm in my 90-day period, let's say for day 45. About, y'all get me, y'all follow. So you have a 90-day vision. Then you have the vision for the year, 2026. This is what I intend to create in 2026. My wife and I were having a conversation. Was it a banker or no? It's a vendor. And they were asking us, so what do you all want to gain? Hey, here's what we want to be at the end of 2026, right? We're both clear. We both can speak to it. This is where we want to be at the end of 2026 in this business, right? Every facet, all 4 pillars. Here's where I want to be in my health. Here's where I want to be in my relationship. Here's where I want to be financially. Here's where I want to be in my career. Here's where I want to be spiritually. Here's where I should be in the activation of my purpose. And then if that seems too complicated, I want you to simplify it and define the 3 outcomes you want by the end of each window. I only share 2 visions, right? 90-day vision, 2026 vision. Then you want your life vision. Your life vision. What do I mean by life vision? I was sharing, can't remember who I was sharing my life vision with. I was having this conversation with one of my clients. It was one of my clients. And they were asking me about vision. And I told them, I said, look, I have a vision for like how I want to die. Right? I want to be in my 90s strong, if I can, still teaching, right? Clear-minded, physically strong. And if the good Lord allows it, to one day pass in my sleep, past 100. Like, just go and take me that way. Now, that might not be the design, but that's the vision. So that's the game I'm playing. So because I'm playing that game, how I attend to my health is if I'm going to be strong in my 90s going into 100, I got to be strong now going into 50. I got another 50 years to play, God willing, right? Vision around my health, vision around my relationship. I was telling a friend of mine struggling in his marriage right now, said, hey, man, you got to get past what's happening right now and see where you want you all to be. When I'm in tough spots with my wife, I say, well, it won't always be this way. We won't always have little ones. We won't always have the stress and the tension of having small children. Can't let that take us out now, because as we go into our 60s, that's what, man, you get where I'm going? Going to let this tension take us. It's not going to always be there. I can't make decisions and take actions based on the tension and stress of that moment. I got to take action based on the vision for the relationship, to raise these children into meaningful human beings that give us grandchildren. And one day we sitting around the house like the grandchildren on the way, and we like each other. You get where I'm going? The vision, life vision, life vision. What is my life vision for my finances? That helps me say no to something today so I can be there tomorrow. In my 20s, I'm so blessed to have had a life vision. Buddy, I remember a buddy of mine, man, I was in my early 20s. He pulled up in the Escalade. He had a factory job at Borg Warner. They were killing it, right? And he pulls up in the Escalade, and I got my little hatchback. He's like, man, L, I see you out here working, man. You should get you one of these. And I was like, nah. Because the way I saw it is when I'm older and my back's a bit stiffer and everything's in, I probably want to be in that comfort then, not now. So let me go ahead and pay this $200 car note and stash the rest away. Let it grow through compound interest. Life vision. Life vision. So those are the 3 visions: 90-day, 2026, life. Then what I want you to do is define 3 outcomes you want by the end of the 90-day window and by the end of the 2026 window in all 4 pillars. That's 12 outcomes. That's not that difficult, is it? By the way, the 90-day outcomes are part of so you already did like a portion of the year outcome. Why is this important? Either you get clear or you sit in fear. Either you get clear or you sit in fear. And if fear hasn't done you in yet, then I guess you'll just sit in it. If it ain't beat you up good enough yet, then you'll just be there. But if you're tired, you're like, no more of this, then you'll get clear. You'll get clear. Like, you know what? I don't got time for this no more. I'm not sitting in this anymore. Vision is most needed when life becomes unstable and uncertain. The brother was asking Linal, how do I contend with what's happening economically? How do I contend with the marketplace? How do I contend with the falling dollar? How do I contend with the debt? Get clear on your life, right? Get clear. Get clear. Vision is most needed when life becomes unstable and uncertain, because it gives the mind a target on which to rest. I don't know what's going on over here, but I know the game I'm playing over there. The other thing y'all got to remember is that if there's no fog, there's no need for faith. The fog comes in, like, and it's like, well, that's what faith is about. It's a little foggy, but I know I'm supposed to be headed north. And so one step in front of the other, and whatever jumps out, I'm ready for it. Why? Because I'm not traveling alone. You might see only one person on the path, but I promise you, I got a real big friend next to me. And when you jump out, you're going to get got. It's that simple. I mean, am I the only one that thinks like this? Here's the last part. 3-part execution system for vision to action. Write with emotion. Emotion is you have emotional currency. Write with emotion. Make it mentally visible. I can see this. Why? Because you are a creator and you create what you see. And then break it down. I like 3s, right? Break it down. What are the 3 actions you're going to take this week? Starting today. Action number 1 is today. And what I would say is action number 1 today is create the time. I know the All-Star game is on today, maybe beforehand. It's a lot of distractions. Just get the 90-day vision handled. This is where, wow, okay. In the first quarter, this is what I'm going to be. Third of the work is done. Now, 2026, because you already got one quarter done. A quarter of the work is done. Now, 2026, in the second quarter, in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter. What does all that look like? What are my 3 outcomes? If you don't know where to go from there, become a Slayer Goals member. Go to SlayerGoals.com, download the book for free, and then join the community. Get the coaching and support you need. At a minimum, if you can't afford it, I'm here every Sunday for free. Call in. I love you guys. I promise I do. Let's not let this fear thing, don't let it own us. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is obedience to purpose. When you know who you are, fear is only a notification, not a vote. It's that simple. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linal Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.